Let's just turn 70.
It's just telling you what's happening.
All right, so it's recording.
Yeah.
When's the budget meeting?
I need to stick around. Laura, you gonna start the meeting? You want me to?
Yeah, I've already got this.
There was nothing.
The cat,
I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Monday, March 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Dan Healy, and Alderman Sullivan will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take the meeting by calling a roll call, taking a roll call attendance. If you're participating via Zoom, please state your presence, reason for not attending the meeting in person, and whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clee. Alderman Moran. Alderman Lopez. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Clemens. Alderwoman Kelly.
I'm here. I'm participating via Zoom due to mobility issues. I am in the room by myself and I can hear everyone.
Alderman Como. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons. Alderman Wilshire.
I am here.
You have 9 present, 6 absent.
Thank you. I know Alderman Clemens is not feeling well. Alderman Clee is in the Historic District Commission, and Alderman Timmons is at the Board of Ed meeting. Okay. For some reason, we have a lot of feedback.
Yeah, it's.
Do we know how to fix that? Okay.
No, we don't.
Is that?
Can you
Fixed?
still hear us?
Is the volume up over there?
It's on down the lowest on this.
Yeah, I think they can get it that way, I think.
Okay, at this time, I am going to turn the meeting over to the chairman of the Budget Review Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, this evening we have 2 public hearings, one on R-23-092 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $1,771,199 of FY 2023 unanticipated revenue into Fund Number 1001, Capital Improvements, Department 160, Public Works, Administration and Engineering. And then after we conclude that, we'll be going into R-23-098, authorizing the mayor and the city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $10 million to fund additional costs for the design and construction of a new middle school and renovations and expansion of Pennachuck Middle School, including the payment of costs incremental or related thereto. So we will start with the public hearing on R-23-092 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $1,771,199 of FY 2023 unanticipated revenue into Fund Number 1001, Capital Improvements, Department 160, Public Works, Administration, and Engineering. Is there anyone here to present? No? anyone have any questions about it? All right, seeing no questions, I will now ask for testimony in favor. Seeing none. Testimony in opposition. Seeing none. Testimony in favor again. Seeing none. Testimony in opposition. Again, seeing none. So I will close the public hearing on Resolution R 23092 at 7:05 PM. I will now open the public hearing on Resolution R 23098 at 7:05 PM. And it's R 23098, authorizing the mayor and the city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $10 million to fund additional costs for the design and construction of a new middle school and renovations and expansion of Pennachuck Middle School, including the payment of costs incidental or related thereto. And I just today sent a letter that explains the project to the Board of Education and was just there and presented it to them. And they're okay with it. They've taken formal vote on it. So I'm going to read the letter they sent to the Board of Ed. To the Board of Education, dear members of the board, you have before you this evening a request to approve R 23098 to add additional $10 million to the middle school project bond. When we approved the guaranteed maximum price for the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School as part of the middle school project, we realized that we would need this additional $10 million to be added to the previously approved $118 million bond. When the GMP was approved for the McCarthy School, $10 million was added to the city's bond plan, and the mayor and city treasurer and joint special school building committee were made aware that we would need to add up to this $10 million additional to the bond, and therefore it was added to the city bond plan. We held off on formally requesting the additional money until now to give us time to see how much bond money was left from Fairgrounds and Pennachuck School construction projects. Fairgrounds was completed on schedule and under budget. We recognize the savings of $1.4 million, and I have signed the substantially complete paperwork for Pennachuck. Only outside work and punch list items remain. And while there will be some savings at Pennachuck, it is not as high as expected due to a few unknown unknowns, such as security bollards requested to be installed by Homeland Security, and other requests by National Fire Rescue, city planning, and school district IT and security changes. The original cost estimate of these items was exceeded. We still completed the project on time, under budget, but our savings were not as high as Fairgrounds. We also are looking at a requirement to install dehumidification at Pennachuck, especially on the new wings, and we'll need the Fairgrounds and Pennachuck savings to complete that work if undertaken. We have held off on that part of the Pennachuck project until we had a better understanding of where we were at financially and schedule-wise on the McCarthy School, which is going very well, and to ensure the additional bond money was approved for the McCarthy School before making any final decisions on Pennachuck dehumidification. As mentioned, McCarthy School construction is going very well, but the issues surrounding inflation and nation supply chain issues still are present, and we will need the additional $10 million of bond money to complete the school on time. We fully believe that we will not exceed the full $10 million additional authorized bond, but we need to ensure we have escalation and contingency accounts intact in case of any additional unknown unknowns. Our construction manager, Javi, has done an outstanding job keeping costs within budget, but some items doubled in cost due to the additional fuel costs, labor costs, and other energy cost increases. And to the Board of Education, I was asking to send approval, recommendation to the Board of Aldermen's Budget Committee and the full Board of Aldermen, so final action can be taken on this resolution by the April 11th Board of Aldermen meeting. Without this funding, the completion of the McCarthy School could be in jeopardy. Again, this is not an increase of cost from the approved GMP, but rather just approving the original cost estimate.
Excuse me, Alderman Dowd.
What?
Alderman Kelly cannot hear you. She's not getting any sound.
There's the TV guys.
Oh, it's they unmuted the chamber.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
you have a copy of the letter?
For some reason, we're still getting the echo, but,
Probably not.
did you get a copy of the letter that went to the Board of Ed?
Are you speaking to me, Alderman Dunn?
Yes.
I believe I did.
Okay, good. So I don't need to read it again.
Don't read it again. No, we're good.
Okay, are there any questions before we get started? Okay, seeing none. Okay, I'll now take testimony in favor of R 23098. Seeing none. Testimony in opposition. Seeing none. Testimony in favor once again. None. Testimony in opposition. None. I will close the public hearing on Resolution R 23098 at 7:11 p.m. Alderman O'Brien, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion that the March 27th, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, and we are adjourned at 7:12 p.m. and we'll go right into budget. Okay. Mike? Alderman O'Brien? Set.
All set.
All right, meeting of the Budget Review Committee was held on Monday, March 27th, 2023 at 7:13 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Sullivan,
Here.
Alderman Kelly, Alderman
here.
Jett.
She's there.
Yeah, she's here, yep. Alderman Jettie,
Here.
Alderman Karen,
Here.
Alderman Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
The clerk, Michael O'Brien, is present, and Chairman Richard Dow.
Present. Okay.
7 members in attendance.
Also in attendance, I see Director Sullivan, Treasurer, and what's your title these days? Yes, okay. Thank you.
Alderman Tebow is here as well,
Yeah, point of order, I'm here as well.
Oh.
and Alderman Lopez and Clee.
Depot and Lopez are here, and we were just joined by Alderwoman Clee. All right. So the first item on the agenda is public comment. Any members of the public that wish to speak? All right. None. Communications.
Received communications from Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager on behalf of the Conservation Commission. Reason, authorization to request $13,000 from the Board of Aldermen to the Conservation Fund number 4080 for beaver management in the Hasselbrook area.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file. If people have questions, I'll ask you to come up, Sherry. Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions.
Before us this evening is R-23-090, authorizing the expenditure or up to $13,000 from the Conservation Fund for beaver management work in the Hasselbrook area.
Okay. So, and your motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
All right. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this? We can bring up Sherry. Yes, Alderman Jenny?
Yeah, I was asked by the Conservation Commission to sponsor this resolution, and I see that Chairwoman Dutsey is here as well as Director Sullivan, and I don't know, you have a plan to present?
Both of you want to come up and you can...
Good evening. For the record, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Division Director. As Alderman Jetty mentioned, we're joined this evening by Sherry Dutsey, the Chair of the Conservation Commission. The sort of genesis for this legislation request before you this evening for $13,000 from the Conservation Fund is based on increased stormwater runoff, snow melt conditions, and other environmental conditions. We're seeing an increase in flooding within the Hassels Brook area along a set of private properties, as indicated on the memo that I provided to you this evening. But what's really exacerbating these conditions is the fact that we've had several beaver dams ranging in size and scale and location that have actually been constructed by nature's engineers along this corridor that are exacerbating these environmental issues. That's been evidenced by the fact that this year we've seen an unprecedented level of outreach from folks who live adjacent to this specific corridor that are seeing water rise into their backyards, even some groundwater impacts as well within basements. And while we can't exclusively attribute it to this beaver issue, we believe this to be a major contributor to those conditions. I should also mention that one of the key considerations for us bringing this forward is the fact that there are several roadways that could be impacted in the event that one of these beaver dams suddenly fails. We saw a similar issue in Amherst earlier this year where we saw some overtopping of a bridge or a road, and we certainly don't want that to be the case. And so again, addressing these beavers directly is what we believe is the best activity to move forward. Now, as far as strategy, we've yet to determine the final strategy, but in consultation with Skip Lyle, who's the president of Beaver Deceivers LLC, who's not been selected for the project, but was brought in to provide some expert testimony and sort of support for us, we do believe that there'll be a need for some level of removal and installation of what are referred to as beaver devices or beaver deceivers to actually handle flow, but also deter the beavers from doing some of the work that they've been doing in the corridor. So while this money is dedicated to beaver management, it's not clear exactly what the treatment will be, but we're pretty confident this $13,000 will go a long way in addressing these issues. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but the Conservation Commission as well as Public Works have been dealing with a lot of resident complaints about this over the past months, and we hope that this will go a long way in solving these issues. Just for a frame of reference for the future, there's about $1.77 million in the conservation fund, so this is a very appropriate investment of these monies based on the current available funds.
Are there any questions for Director Sullivan? Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you very
Alderman
much.
Sullivan.
Director Sullivan, I was reading through the memo and I was hoping that you could just put a finer point on the geographic location of this, because I know where Salmon Brook is in relation to Almont Street. That's what you were saying, right? Almont Street?
Yep.
Yeah, if you could just explain where this is impacted, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to. So I'll actually use the BG playing fields as sort of an orientation point. If you actually look at the map that was presented in the memorandum that I provided to the committee, there's a green area in the bottom right of that map where the text box is. That green area is actually the BG athletic fields across Almont Street. So this Hassels Brook area is directly to the west of that from those BG athletic fields that are aligned with Almont Street, if that helps orient you and other members of the committee. Specifically, if you're familiar with Pell Ave, that's another area that's impacted. and then the other street network shown on this map right here. But really, we're looking to the west of the BG campus and school, Alderman Sullivan. And just again if folks are looking at this green area in the bottom right-hand corner, that is the BG athletic field area right here.
Okay. All right, I got it now.
Any other questions for, yes, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. Through you to Director Sullivan. So this is, Hasselbrook is northwest of Salmon Brook, correct? On
Generally.
Lund Road.
Yes.
And so I know that there has been flooding problems in the past where Hasselbrook starts on the other side of the Everett Turnpike along Progress Avenue in that area. Will this alleviate any of that?
Yes.
It's an excellent question, and it's perhaps a bit of an unknown. What we do know is that each of these changes, whether it's 3 or 4 treatments that we install, is going to have an impact downstream, if you will. We don't know exactly what that impact will be, but we're hopeful that this will not create or exacerbate the condition that you're referring to, Alderman Jettie. I can't commit to the fact that this will or will not solve some of those issues we've heard about historically, but we believe that these installations will not greatly exacerbate that flow, but will resolve the condition that exists right in this area. So the answer is it's most likely not going to impact that area, but every activity within the watershed, if you will, does have some level of upstream and downstream impact. So it's possible it could have some change.
Thank you.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Sullivan? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In that case, okay. So the motion is for final passage of R 23-090
Has to be by roll call.
by roll call, yes. That would be you, call the roll.
Ready? Okay, roll call. Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes, Chairman Dow.
Yes,
That is 7 yeas, 0 nays.
motion carried. All right. Next is R 23-092.
Yeah, also before us is R 23-092, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $1,771,199 of fiscal year 2023 unanticipated revenue into Fund Number 1001, Capital Improvements, Department 160, Public Works, Administration and Engineering. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage and want to vote by roll call.
The motion is for final passage of R 23-092, and I might go out on a limb and say, Mr. Griffin and Ms. Linda, are you here to talk to that, or?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. John Griffin, CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector. I was expecting someone maybe from Department of Public Works, but I can handle it. And Alderman O'Brien's going to be thrilled with this. We actually got more money from the state than we were planning on. So due to hard work, we received additional funds related to bridge repair. And we're fortunate to get these funds and put them in a fund that we can use not only for the match for the 2 bridges going across from Hudson, but also other much-needed bridge repairs. So we received these funds during fiscal '23. We can't spend them without the Board of Aldermen accepting them and supplementally appropriating these funds for taking care of these issues. So hopefully that answers questions, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions for Treasurer? Yes. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Would you be able to do some of the, for lack of a better term, the red line bridges, like things that go across Canal Street or in through those areas and so on? Or is it just only for the large bridges, the Hudson Bridge project and so on?
It's my understanding, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
that it can be used, the allocation that we got, this was a $36 million statewide funding source, and based on size of bridges and other things, it's my understanding that it can be used for the city bridges. I'm not quite sure if it's singling out certain longer bridges spanning rivers and other things, but Director Photo was very interested in putting this in a fund that it could be used across the board. In addition to that, there's a Senate bill, 270 as I recall, that's trying to appropriate $20 million. So our hope is that if we're in support of that, we get a fraction of the 20 million. So we got 1.77 million from 36 million, so my assumption would be if it's 20 million, we get something a little bit less, but nonetheless important.
Additional follow-up, Alderman Clee?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to comment to it that I'm glad to see this money coming. Its infrastructure has been suffering, and there's only so much everybody can do to help. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Griffin? One question I have is there any work that needs to be done on the Main Street Bridge? And if so, would this cover any of those repairs?
I'm not sure if, Mr. Chair, if
All right.
what work needs to be done, and I would assume these funds could be used for
Okay.
bridge repair. Thank
There are
you.
no other questions. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Our chair, Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. Next is R 23-096.
Okay, before us is R 23-096, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the National Board of Education and the National Teachers Union Local 1044 AFT AFL-CIO Unit C secretaries from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026, and relative transfers. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Okay, the motion on the floor is for final passage of R 23-096. I did want to mention that I was just at the Board of Education meeting, and the president of the union, Mr. Marku, was there with probably 150 people on an item that was coming up tonight at the Board of Education. So he sends his regrets and is not here, but asked the board to take positive action to approve this contract. The secretaries have negotiated in good faith and aren't highly paid to begin with. So are there any additional questions? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. I have two, actually. I was just curious to know, this covers 73 employees. Excuse me, according to the contract. I was just curious to know how they were doing on staffing levels, to see if they're able to fully staff that department, but I can understand there's probably nobody here to answer that.
Mr. Griffin, do you have any idea? No? The last I knew, I think they were short, but not many.
Okay. One more?
Yes.
Thank you. It says in the resolution that we have 30 days to pass. I'm assuming this was signed on 1 March 2023, so we have until, that's when the clock started, 1st of March, so we have
Yes.
until the 1st of April to pass this.
It has to come before the full board.
Within 30 days, right?
Yeah,
So it's got to be here tomorrow.
tomorrow. I'm just looking at the president to make sure. I believe, it should, I believe, and when I talked to Donna, that it is on, I think, on the agenda tomorrow night, if anybody
is.
has.
Is it?
Do you have the agenda?
I saw it here.
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask a question. I do not have the agenda.
But if it were not passed, if it's not on tomorrow night's agenda, we have a meeting on the 11th, correct? And we would approve it then.
No, it's
If
not.
it goes over the 30 days, we just need to talk to the union and get holy water.
It's not.
Usually it's not a problem, but it's not on the agenda? Okay, so it'll be the 11th. Any other questions? Alderman Tebow?
Yeah, I guess it's a question. I know I'm not on committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak. I know that there was a big meeting at, Board of Ed tonight, so I understand why people from the union couldn't be there. But I'm hoping that when it does come to the board, that we could have somebody here, along with DPW, for when the other, even though I think that, obviously we're getting money, so that's a good thing. But just to answer any questions that any of us might have, because, these things come before us and we read all that stuff, but sometimes we have questions that we want to answer. So I'm just curious if we can make sure that when we do have the full board, that somebody.
I've talked to Adam a couple times. He will be here.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you so much.
I'm not sure about the DPW, but we can talk to Director Photo. Any other questions? Alderman O'Brien?
Yes, thank you. Just more than an observation, maybe if this helps out Mr. Sullivan. I too am very disappointed that Mr. Marco isn't here with the representative or somebody to represent the union. Something as important as a contract that comes up. But from another gentleman who lights a candle at both ends, I can appreciate one being busy. But that being said, there are certain protocols that the Board of Aldermen needs to follow. We don't do the nuts and bolts negotiations with the particular unions. That is usually done by, the appropriated board, their division directors and everything. Our job here is just basically to make sure that the money is available and that it's reasonable and within the public interest to be funded. So the nuts and bolts and everything else, although we may have the right to question, I think we would face an unfair labor practice if we did challenge way too much of what was done in collective bargaining. So it's a very fine line. We've walked it for many times in contracts here. But again, my displeasure, I hope that when we convene again, that a representative of the union is here to answer some questions and everything for everybody. Thank you.
As I explained, I did talk to him twice, and he will be here. The item that's coming before the Board of Ed tonight, late in their agenda, is extremely important to the union, evidently, as all of the officers are there and quite a few teachers. And Channel 9 is covering it, so, but anyway.
We've been preempted by Channel 9?
Yeah, probably. I try to keep my face off of camera.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries.
Also before us this evening is R-23-097, relative to the rescinding of authorized unissued debt. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion is to recommend final passage of R-23-097, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Griffin and Ms. Linda are here to discuss. Could be wrong, but I don't think so.
So, Mr. Chairman, John Griffin, CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector. To my right is Ms. Cheryl Lindner. Cheryl spent a lot of time on this particular item. Very important for the city to rescind, and she'll provide some definition, but to rescind bonds that we're not going to sell. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to bring the mic up close?
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening. Cheryl Lindner, Treasury Management Officer. The legislation before you tonight is the city's annual rescinding of debt. The total comes to just over $17 million. So due to the city's strong financial position and AAA bond rating, our bonds are very attractive to bidders. This allows us to sell our bonds for premium, which is an amount paid higher than the par value of the bonds. The premium is then applied against projects in the bond sale to decrease the amount that we have to borrow. So where we're bonding less than the authorized amounts, we need to rescind authorized but unissued debt around once a year to clear off the remaining amounts covered by premium and reflect the actual borrowed amounts. By doing this, we're able to accurately report the amounts bonded and remove amounts not borrowed from the city's debt portfolio. In this resolution, you'll see a couple of items that are related to solid waste and wastewater projects. So what we do is we try to see where we get the best rate for those projects. So if getting a bond is a better interest rate, we'll go that way, but a lot of times it's through loans, the SRF loans. And so we will use those. As part of that program, there are certain projects that are eligible for first principal payment forgiveness. So you'll see a couple of the smaller amounts on here that pertains to. And again, the amount borrowed is less than the actual amount that we're paying, and so we need to just reduce those off of the debt portfolio. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Alderman Sullivan?
Yes. This is my first trip around the rescinding of debt merry-go-round. So forgive me if I heard what you said.
It's usually listed on the good side of the page.
I don't know if I understood it. So I'm just gonna, let's just go through the first one, just I'm gonna repeat back, if you don't mind, and then just correct me where I'm wrong, just so I can understand it. So we passed a resolution in 08 for the Broad Street Parkway for $37,600,000. We purchased we have bonds against that. We issued 30 million-ish, 31 million of the 37. And so there's 6.6 million left over that we didn't bond. Where you started off your presentation by saying that because of our outstanding accounting practices and where we are as a city, that people want to buy those bonds from us. Can you explain that?
Yes. So, so our bonds, we are a very safe, secure investment vehicle. Our city has a very good reputation. With the AAA credit rating, some places actually need to buy those investments that are AAA rated because they're so secure. So people are interested in buying our bonds because it is a safe, secure investment, and they know that they're going to get their money back. We're going to pay it back. We're not going to default on them. So the bidders are willing to pay a little bit more than the cost than the face value of the bond, the par value of the bond. So, and John can pitch in wherever he wants to add detail. But so anyway, we also front load our payments. So we do a level debt payment So we pay back a higher amount the first year. If you read our fiscal notes, it says the payment's higher the first year, and then it gradually decreases till we get down to a smaller amount. We don't do a level payment, so they're actually getting their money back quicker when they invest in our bonds as well. Does that help?
It does.
Okay.
Could I follow up?
Follow-up question?
So are you saying that we own the bonds and then other people, we still owe that money, but they borrow that and then for a higher rate and then we take, am I making sense? Because it's really,
It's hard to think in personal finance, like for you or I, why would you pay more? But for an investment vehicle for companies that are looking for secure investments,
right.
They're willing to pay a little bit more to get their money back faster and also to know that their investment is secure. And we do have multiple bidders, which tends to increase the price a little bit.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I could probably help a little bit. Thank you for the introduction, but there's a couple of things going on here, and if you followed some of the banking issues that have happened recently, where there was, and I don't know it fully either, but the investments that the bank made didn't keep pace with the rise in interest rates, so sometimes you get these underwater investments. But regarding the city, Cheryl is absolutely correct that we generally get 10 to 13 very aggressive bidders, and we know that because the difference between the losing bidders and the winner is like fractions of percents. So what they're trying to do is provide an investment stream where they need to pay the premium to drive up the interest rate that's required by the investors. So, for example, an institutional investor would buy our bonds and then they sell them. So what we do on our end is we've got a premium where our Hilltop Securities, who's our investment experts, they basically say, you know, we're gonna buy down. We're not gonna borrow the 37 million. We're gonna borrow less. So they ask us, where do you want us to put this premium? And because of the interest rates rising, the last premium was substantial, the one from August 4th of 2022. So we're borrowing less. It really is the end of the game. And what Ms. Linder is indicating is we're never going to sell those bonds because we already sold the bonds and got the premium. I would like to add that having been here when Treasurer Fredette was selling these Broad Street Parkway bonds, we had the ability to sell 37 million. We sold about 33 or 34 million. So the two reasons to rescind is, one is the premium eliminates the need to ever sell them. And secondly, checking with the folks that have been part of the Broad Street Parkway, now Veterans Memorial Parkway, the likelihood of us having to sell additional bonds is remote. So up and down the line here, it's a combination of premium that enables us not to have to sell the par value, as Ms. Linder indicated, and also the project costs were much less than the amount we have in the bond authorization. So if we have that, if that makes sense to you, there's another thing that Alderman Dowd brings up every now and again, which is the repurposing of bonds that are actually sold. So for example, if we had a project, and it happens a lot in the school district buildings, if we bonded, no, it's not the case tonight, but if we bonded like 30 million to fix a school and it cost us 28 million, Alderman Dowd would come in and say, let's take that 2 million and repurpose it, because we've already got the money and sold the bonds, right? So I wanted to clear that up too, that in this case, with the next resolution, we don't have that luxury for various reasons, so that we're gonna borrow more. So we're asking you, in that case, to authorize additional bonding authorization. This is important when Ms. Linder and I come before you in probably early May with our annual bond plan review. you're going to learn about the limitations that we as a city have on bonding for school projects and for non-school projects. This is a way to get below that, way to reduce that percentage of bond authorizations. It's called unissued, authorized but unissued. You want to reduce that if you possibly can. Not sure it's quite similar to folks that have maybe 3 or 4 credit cards and they want to get rid of one of them. Somehow that's a bad idea, but in this case, it's a good idea. Thank you.
So, another way of looking at it is the Broad Street Parkway still has bonding available if this board so decided, and we want to do something else on the Veterans Memorial Parkway. We have money already set aside in a bond to use. This way, we take it off the books and we don't tempt ourselves to spend it. Is that correct?
That would be a way of phrasing it. Yes, thank you.
So I thought that would be very interesting to you, Alderman Sullivan.
It would. Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So when we go through the budget season, will I expect to see, because I know there's a page in the budget book where we have listed out all the bonds.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that we'll see all of these bonds fall away.
Disappear,
Yeah.
right?
Actually,
Or are you gonna leave them listed as zero?
no, maybe if I could, the bonds that are listed on the sheets that Alderman Sullivan's are referencing, we've sold those bonds. What we keep track of is the authorized but unissued. So this wouldn't be, if we didn't sell the bonds, there's no debt service associated with it, and what you're looking at is the debt service listing. That's, you folks are appropriating the money to pay the debt service back.
But there will be no debt service against those because,
Correct.
okay.
But we could produce, and we will produce, the unauthorized and unissued that we've kept, so you'll see that.
Okay, that'd be.
I think that's a good suggestion, and we can certainly do that as well.
All set?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
No other questions? All right, the clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Chairman Alderman Dowd.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, is 7 yeas, 0 nays.
motion carries.
Also before us this evening is R-23-098, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $10 million to fund additional costs for design and construction of a new middle school and renovations and expansions of Pennachuck Middle School, including the payment of costs incidental or related thereto. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R 23-098. Again, we are not adding any additional work to the project. We approved the guaranteed maximum price quite some time ago, and this 10 million's been on the bond plan since then, and the mayor and treasurer have been fully aware, as well as a joint special. So are there any questions, additional questions? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, thank you. So, as I read the resolution, it talks about how we had authorized the issuance of bonds not to exceed $118 million, and that was for the new middle school,
Preschool,
the,
Pennachuck, Fairgrounds, and McCarthy.
you know, the 3 schools. So can you break down the McCarthy School? What's their portion of that?
When we got the guaranteed maximum price on the McCarthy School, it was $77 million. Quite frankly, we got, Harvey did an excellent job of keeping it to that. There's a school being built similar to this in the Concord area that's up around $156 million because of everything that's happened we were able to get in and buy a lot of our material up front and saved a lot of money. There were some things that doubled in price, but it's all in the guaranteed maximum price. So, and the reason we didn't go in for this earlier is we were hoping that we would have additional savings from Fairgrounds and Pennachuck, which we didn't realize because there were things added, like the bollards that were added because of Homeland Security requirements in front of every single door, and that includes the McCarthy School. There's a lot of doors. And we had to put in a new fire panel at Pennachuck because there wasn't enough space to cover the existing with the addition, because we double the size of the school. We ran into additional costs with the wiring of the high definition cameras. That's a long story, but it costs more. And I think everybody on the Joint Special is keenly aware of that. So there were additional costs that came up on Pennachuck. So, and then there's dehumidification that we'd like to do at Pennachuck, at least in the 2 new wings we built. We had to use fans last summer, especially when they have black solar panels on top of the roofs. It doesn't help cool things down. So, but we have recognized the saving at Pennachuck. But if we take the savings from Pennachuck and the savings from Fairgrounds, we have all or substantially all of the costs, I believe, that we'll need to do the dehumidification at Pennachuck. When I went for the bond to have this legislation written, I did take $1 million, put it towards Pennachuck just in case, and $9 million for McCarthy School. Now, that money, a lot of it's going to be in contingencies and escalation costs and things that hopefully, because we're so far along and things are going well so far, that we'll have money left and we'll be back in the same situation. We'll be not bonding the money that's left or allocating it to something else. But we don't intend to spend it all, but with the world as it is today, with the supply chain management and inflation, I hesitate to not go for the full 10 million, because if you have to go back later for another time to get bond money, even if it's only $1 million, it takes 2 months. I can't have contractors sitting around waiting, because $1 million would turn into 2 or 3 million waiting for because once contractors leave, getting them back is impossible, especially with the busy as they are. So this is the safest bet to make sure that we open the school on time and under budget. So, yes.
So if I could follow up. So help me to understand, you said that the 77 million for McCarthy is a guaranteed maximum price, and we're not exceeding that. And that we're under budget on Pennachuck and Fairgrounds. So why do we need another 10 million on top of the 118 million?
Because when we did the guaranteed maximum price, we knew we needed more money on the bond. The 118 is not going to cover it. But we were waiting to see just how much money we had left with Fairgrounds and Pennachuck. If we didn't have the dehumidification to think about at Pennachuck, which the Joint Special thinks is pretty important, we would have taken that money, that $2 or $3 million, and put it towards the McCarthy School, and I'd only be back here asking for 7. So if we had that savings and didn't do the dehumidification and went in for 10 several months ago, we'd end up with a lot left at the end, more at the end, but we're trying to avoid having too much allocated. Yes, Alderman Jettie.
So thank you. So to help me understand this better, what you're saying is that the guaranteed maximum price is not being exceeded. In fact, because the Fairgrounds and Pennachuck came in under budget, you're able to put some additional money towards Pennachuck for this dehumidification you speak of. But that's all within the guaranteed maximum price. But the bond that we initially
No.
issued, 118, just was not enough for that. It was less than the guaranteed maximum price.
You have to remember that Fairgrounds and Pennachuck both had guaranteed maximum prices. McCarthy by itself is 77 million. And we want to ensure that as we're getting further and further downstream, that we have the money to cover all of it.
So, just one last point. So am I correct in saying that we're not exceeding the budget? We just didn't, the $118 million bond that we issued, that we knew that was less than the budget. And we were
When we
hoping-
went in for the 118 million, that was before we started getting into COVID and a war that made worldwide supply chain issues and inflation that caused prices to increase out of sight. And if we hadn't had Harvey doing an excellent job, we'd be back here for a lot more. But we were able to buy a lot of stuff up front and save money. And we want to make sure that we can finish this school with available funding. Can we finish it for what we currently have? I doubt it. And even to get close, we'd have to avoid the dehumidification at Pennachuck. And we still probably would need some additional money, so we'd be coming back here later. But if you wait till the end to try to come back for additional bond money then, you got contractors that'll be leaving site and sitting off for 2 months while it goes through the process. Getting bonding takes time.
So,
Follow up?
please. So I don't know why. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to get you to confirm in plain English that even though the cost of these 3 schools is according to the budget that you came up with, the amount that we borrowed was less than what we needed for the budget. And, either because we thought, we might be able to come in far enough under budget that we wouldn't need to borrow any more money, and we were just being conservative about the amount of money we need. And so now we learn that we may need as much as 10 million more, but that's not increasing the budget, it's just increasing the amount that we're borrowing.
It's not increasing, well, first of all, it's not increasing any amount of work. That's the same. It's just that we need the money to cover it. The 10 million was put in the bond plan long over a year ago, I believe. The mayor was informed, and it's been in the bond plan for quite some time, showing that we needed the additional 10. It was just a question of trying to calculate whether we needed the full 10. And what was the other part of your question?
I'm not sure I'm conveying to you. I'm just trying to, for the public, I think, I'm trying to say that we're not exceeding the budget. We just didn't, that the bond that we initially issued was less than,
Yes, the
what
bond,
was.
the original bond was before the guaranteed maximum price on the McCarthy School. And when we got the guaranteed maximum price on the McCarthy School, we needed more money. The question was how much?
Okay, thank you.
I forget who was first, Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just to kind of clear things up, just again, for the public, everything doesn't happen at once. We don't get the guaranteed maximum price for every project all at the same time when we do the bond. So based on the best possible estimates and so on, this is what we're kind of indicated as to how much it's going to be. We go for that bond. And as the projects progress, starting with Fairgrounds, then Pennachuck, and they do crossover. certain things are happening at a certain time. The guaranteed maximum price, when it finally came in, we realized, okay, it's not enough. But in past, the projects have always allowed for I don't want to say that they were overly estimated in price. So everything that you were saying is absolutely accurate, and everything that Chairman Dowd was saying was excellent. It was just kind of talking at each other a little bit, but yeah, so in some respects, though, we are going over the 118,000.
Yes,
We're going to 100.
million,
118 million, sorry. Oh, my God. We're going to 120. So yes, it's $10 million over what we originally thought we were bonded. But by the time we got to the not to exceed or the guaranteed minimum price, we realized at that point we were $10 million over what we were going to need. So to your answer, yes, you were right, what you were saying. So.
yeah, and we just wanted to see how much we could save. I've done 12 school projects. They've all been finished on time and under budget. Fairgrounds in Pennachuck were on time and under budget. There's some additional work that we're considering for Pennachuck. Otherwise, that money would have gone to McCarthy School, and we would have taken that off the 10 million. But there's additional work needs to be done to Pennachuck if the Joint Special School Building Committee so desires. So it's safe. If we want to it's very critical. We opened the McCarthy School in September of 24. The school department's in the middle of a redistricting, and they're going to be shifting people all over, for all 18 schools. And that didn't open on time. That jigsaw puzzle is going to be a mess. So, yes, I had Alderman Sullivan first.
Thank you. Okay, so I won't bury my lead. I'm going to vote for this. I'm fine. I'm all in. But
I hope so. You're in
when
for a
you,
special.
I know, when you say that the school, the guaranteed maximum price for the school is $77 million, I am looking at right now, the proposed budget for the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School project is $93 million. So if I'm at home right now listening to this, and I have this spreadsheet up in front of me, I would say, how is it that we keep talking about $77 million when the proposed budget clearly states it's $93,515,000? Are you saying that the budget is one thing and the cost is the other?
The budget has excesses in it to make sure we're adequately covered. And there are some things that right now may appear in the budget we're not doing. We're going to be having a meeting on that later this week.
When all is said and done, when you write all the checks for the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School, is that number going to come out to 77 million or is it going to come out to 93 million? Because I'm under the impression when everyone asks me, how much does this middle school cost? I say $93.5 million. Am I accurate or am I spewing misinformation?
Well, there's a couple things involved. Remember, we have an additional $2 million that the mayor gave to us. So the bond was 118, we actually had 120. We had this 130. And there were some other things being covered on the McCarthy School that are being covered by other funding sources that are security related that I can't get into here.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But is the school going to cost 93.5 million or is it going to cost 77 million?
It's not going to cost 93 million. And first of all, we can never, ever exceed what has been bonded. So with the 10 million, we're at 118 plus 2, 120, 130 million. We can't exceed that. Period. So we're going to have to go through the budget and item by item, but there are, again, some things on that budget that are being covered by other funding sources, and they're security related.
I understand that. But is the school gonna cost 93 million or 77 million? Because the budget is $93.5 million.
The school is not going to cost the 3 schools are not gonna cost any more than 130 million. If it was, I'd be in here requesting 20 million, not 10 million. Alderman Cleen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if the question should be, is the school going to cost the taxpayers 93 million or 77 million? There are other funding sources like ARPA funds, et cetera, if I'm not mistaken, that are kind of helping to defray some of the cost. But the taxpayers and the
Right.
not to exceed will be 77 million.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Lopez?
I just want to acknowledge and thank the Special Building Committee and yourself as well, because as was illustrated earlier in this meeting, we could bond way more than we need and then we have to give it back. Or we could aim for a appropriate target, and then as we encounter need, come back and engage the aldermanic process to deliberately decide whether the increase is needed to meet these goals. All the questions being asked right now, for example, are making sure that we really need this and we don't just have such a surplus that we're tempted to add more things that necessarily need to be added. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. This is the school that is going to replace Elm Street, and it is the project that redistricts and rebalances the schools, all 3 of them, across the city of Nashua. So I think there's a lot of work that's being done here. I think it's very complex, and to Alderman Sullivan's point, I'm trying to remember who said which now. Alderman Sullivan's point, it is very difficult to keep track of, and it is very difficult for a person sitting at home trying to use arithmetic to keep track of, which agencies are putting it in. Is ARPA money taxpayer money? Probably, because I think we give everything the federal government has comes from us. It's very complex, and this is a very complicated project, but I think it's accomplishing something that will last generations. I think it's something that's very important for a growing city to address. I think students that we're never even going to meet are going to would appreciate hypothetically if they knew shorter bus transportation routes, better special education facilities, and hopefully we never have to find out that all of these security arrangements that we're making were well intended and were necessary. So I think the project here is incredibly important, and it is complicated, and it can be a little bit exasperating trying to figure out one nuanced area or another. But I think fundamentally the principle of making sure that we are building a quality school building for our schools, making sure that we're investing what we need to in our education facilities and our children, both from an education standpoint, a logistics, and also a safety standpoint, and making sure that we're doing that with an eye towards not just starting out with a blank check, but working our way up to the actual amount that we fully need, is a prudent one. And I think, as had been said many times here, we showed a lot of insight in purchasing the supplies ahead of time and managing the cost of this project. And so those are all things that I want to commend yourself and the committee for.
Any other questions? Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes, Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. New business ordinances,
There is none,
table in committee,
none.
general discussion. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate and understand the back and forth. Please understand, I'm not debating at all. I think that, the school is obvious. I sit on the joint special. I sit through those meetings, and I even went back and I looked at the original presentation that was done back in 2019, where the cost to renovate Elm Street was higher at the time been building a new middle school, that obviously I think that would have changed right now. I just think on the merits, I mean, we need to put the middle school where the middle school is. I think it makes plenty of sense. That's where the city is moving. That's where it's going. What I was trying to get to is that I think that, so you have been, and when I say you, I'm not, please don't, I'm not a character assassination or anything.
No.
But you're deep in these projects all the time. All the time.
Yep.
And I see you with your binders, and I see you with tracking and understanding and explaining for me especially, because I'm new to this, still new to this, that, you know, why we're doing this and why we're doing that. And I think sometimes I come at it as just, like I said, if I'm watching it on TV and I have this spreadsheet up and we're talking about this number, yet I'm seeing this number. In my world, a budget is how much it's going to cost. And so we're kind of doing this a little bit. And I'm trying to understand, mind the gap. I'm trying to understand what the gap is so you and I are on the same page. You know, because I'm speaking French and you're speaking English, and I want to make sure that we have subtitles.
Just as an example, one thing that might help you, like Birchill and Maine Dunstable, which we are now deeply involved in, with renovating the schools. In the project, there are 2 boilers. One boiler is being covered by actually the ESSER funds with EEI. The second boiler is being covered under Sean's deferred maintenance account.
Mm-hmm.
So is the city paying for it? Yes. Is it part of the bond? No. So it's things like that so we can go over the whole budget with you.
No, and all it is really, it's someone used the word nuance. It might be nuance because it's, how much are 2 boilers going to cost? $1,000. Okay, I know it's not 1,000, but I'm just using round, stupid numbers.
Yeah.
But how are we going to pay for it? Well, $500 is going to come from this fund, and $750 is going to come from that fund, and this, that, and the other thing. So it may only cost us $250.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when I see two boilers $1,000, I go, well, it's going to cost $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't look at it that way.
I look at it, what it's really going to cost. And
Right.
Where.
Right. Right.
And there is a major expense in security, which I can't get into in detail, but it's several hundreds of thousands of dollars that is not being paid for by the city taxpayers. It's money that's been given to us by other sources.
And that's incredible.
Certainly is. It's a sophisticated system. So we can go over more of the budget when we go in joint special. No, I'm not going to tell you what the security system is. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to ask that. I'm like, how come we don't know that? I mean, it's being paid. But I will say, I just want to echo Alderman Sullivan's thoughts there. You know, what we'll get in the paper, if we had a paper, would be the 93. It wouldn't be the 77. So it's just trying to understand it so when we do have people ask those questions, that we just don't go, well, it's 77. Well, 93. Well, it's 77. And because that's what the argument will be. And so I just, you know, I think it's good to talk about it because I think it's important for us to know what we need to say to the people and what they're responsible for, because we do get so many questions on, and we hear that we're overspending on everything all the time. And I don't really believe that. But then we got to go back and explain the numbers to people who ask. So I just wanted to comment that I thought that was a good conversation, at least to go back and forth on it.
Yeah, so Mr. Griffin well knows that if I needed 20 million, I'd be in for 20 million, not 10.
It's true.
Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so we've been looking at this for a long time, over a year now. So, just, you know, and again, I didn't want to bond money that we didn't really need. And we probably aren't gonna need the 10 million, all of it, so some of it's coming back, but I can't tell you what that number is, because again, you know, unknown unknowns.
I just want you to know, I have a tally of how many times you use the phrase unknown unknowns.
Yeah, you'd have to go back to BAE, I used it for 33 years.
I'm on 6 pages of hash marks right now.
Everybody understands what unknowns are, right? It's when you're into a project and you bid all this stuff and all of a sudden Homeland Security says you gotta put bollards in front of every single door. Hello? So, anyway. All right, any other general discussion? Seeing none, we have nothing table in committee. Public comment, no, over here. Remarks by Alderman. I think we covered that. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion to adjourn by roll call.
Alderman, call the roll.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
7-0. Motion carries.
We're adjourned at 8:16 PM. Thank you, everybody.